Welcome to Charged Up Studio Live, where small business owners get charged up for success. Are you a small business owner? Do you find yourself struggling through the many responsibilities that come with the title entrepreneur? Well, we're here for you. Charged Up Studio is hosted by Market Atomy LLC, your prescription for what we call OPA. What is OPA? It's when you become so overwhelmed with the confusion that comes with business ownership that you become paralyzed and ultimately avoid doing anything in hopes it will take care of itself, or you put it off till later. Does that sound familiar? I'm your host, Danna Olivo, and each week we bring a business professional eager to charge you up as they talk about the many things that keep you from moving forward with your small business. So are you ready to get charged up for success? Let's hit it. So welcome back to Charged Up Studio, where we bring you insightful conversations with industry experts and leaders. I'm Danna Olivo, your host, and we are continuing our focus this month on unleashing creative entrepreneurship, transforming visions into reality. One industry sector that has really expanded exponentially over the last 10 years or more, especially with the introduction of COVID, is the digital training and e-learning market. Since the advent of the digital market or the digital age, education has seen a radical shift. We've migrated from traditional chalk and blackboard classrooms to virtual ones, heralding a revolution in the way knowledge is imparted and absorbed. So today we're going to dive into this tech transformed universe of education and unravel how it has changed our perspective towards learning and training. So this month's guest has worked within this sector for many years and brings a wealth of experience developing and building training and e-learning programs. So grab a cup of your favorite brew, sit back, and get ready to ride the wave of digital learning with us as we decode the EduTech Evolution, as we give a heartfelt, warm, charged up studio welcome to Miss Nancy Giere. Welcome, Nancy.
Hey, thank you. I'm so glad to be with you today.
I'm glad you're here too. I've delved full-heartedly into the e-learning environment and the virtual education environment. That's not my forte, although I know it's part of my arsenal of branding and funneling information. So you're the guru. We're going to get to what you know.
All right. Well, and it's really become part of the mix for everyone.
Yeah. No, that's exactly it. So before we get started, I have a very important question for you. So
okay.
Are you ready? I ask this of every.
I hope so.
I ask this of every guest I have on my podcast. If you could go back in time and give your young self some solid advice, what advice would you give her and at what age?
Well, if going back in time, so the advice that I would give was back when Nancy was a freshman in high school and could not see or the value of algebra. I would have told her, you got to dive in, you got to dig in, because having stronger math skills will serve you well in life. I have compensated for that, I think, for a very long time, because I just didn't get it.
Right.
And then we had my last week as a freshman, sadly, my brother had passed away very unexpectedly. And I should have gone to summer school to study algebra, but they just kind of passed me through because they felt bad for me. So from that point forward, I really had to compensate in a lot of ways, and doors did not open to me that perhaps could have. if I would have adopted that skill at a very young age. Now, I've done okay, but
Yes.
I
Yeah.
think, sometimes you have to, even when things are hard, you got to suck it up and you got to do it.
Well, and you also have to keep in mind that even though at a young age, you don't think, what am I going to use this for?
Yeah.
You
You don't know.
And when you become an adult, if you had that magic ball where that crystal ball where you could look ahead and see, where is algebra going to make sense in my future life, then maybe you might be able to accept it more when you're younger. But unfortunately, when we're younger, we don't have that foresight.
Well, and I
us.
think exactly. And, in many ways, I think some of this positioned me for the career that I ended up in, which
Mhm.
is really around, when you're creating any type of a learning experience, you need to create some sort of context and
Right.
some sort of relevance. Now, it becomes more important for adults because, we can make more of our own choices, perhaps. But,
Right.
I think that, and I look at it, the way history was taught in many instances was a lot of facts and dates. But there's so many wonderful stories that could be told that could have really made that all just resonate and make the classroom just a much more interesting and engaging environment. So,
We're going to
and I
get
think,
into some of that in our
yeah,
question as far as where things have gone, or where
Mhm.
it's going. But I think it's important for our listeners to understand the fact that the purpose behind bringing this podcast, first of all, bringing Nancy
Sure.
to the stage here, is because our lives, personal lives, our business lives, our success lives have been impacted so greatly
Mhm.
because we've had to switch our tactical elements for learning, for engaging, everything.
Yes.
And so it's
Yes.
important that we keep that in mind. So let's get started here, okay? I'm going to start by setting the stage. Nancy, what exactly is e-learning and how does it differ from traditional education methods?
Well, e-learning is consumed on a computer or a tablet or a phone. So it's really a digital format of learning. And one of the biggest differences between e-learning and more traditional training is that it's a solo experience. Somebody sits down, they're at their computer, they're on their phone, wherever they are, and they're just taking it in independently.
Right.
So in its purest form, there isn't anybody there that you can ask a question. You can't raise your hand and say, I'm stuck. I need help. You just kind of, you're going through it. So the level of clarity around instructions is far more important, because the last thing you want, if you're putting a course out into the world, is for someone to get stuck and bail and then they're never heard from again.
Right.
We can bring in groups and create cohorts, set up places for people to engage, either in a group where it's all writing messages back and forth, or you can add in a group where you can be present to answer questions,
Right.
set up office hours, things like that. But
Right.
in its purest form, it's somebody who it's self-study, which we used to have, workbooks that were self-study, but it was still part of it was built into the classroom and the community. So I think the challenge now is to look at how can you offer e-learning and still give a sense of community.
Right. And I think we fell on our sword with the pandemic a great deal when it comes to our school system, because of the fact that, it was so easy for our children to get distracted, to get, not having that environment that engages them, as opposed to just this,
Right.
virtual environment, like you said, one-on-one. So can you help us understand the transition from traditional classroom-based learning to the dynamic world of e-learning. How has the pandemic impacted
Okay.
the timeline and the process?
Right. Well, e-learning has been around for a long time. And prior to e-learning, we distributed digital courses on CDs. So that's how long I've been at this.
Yeah.
So, so CDs, maybe 3 1/4. For those young people out there, it was a disc, right? And things were sent out. But when e-learning came in, it was very prevalent in the corporate setting because it was an easy way to distribute consistent information out to everyone at the same time. So so it's been there and it's been very prevalent. And it used to take a whole team of people to create courses that we would spend months, forever on just to get something out.
Yeah.
Well, as the tools have evolved, it's become easier for just about anybody to create a course. We have cameras on our computers. You can buy yourself a good microphone. You can get lighting in it, so you can do your own video. So it's become where it's open to everyone to do. The challenge is with that, people are getting in the game that don't have sort of the foundational principles around design. So there's this whole methodology that I happen to have a master's degree in, so yay me, called instructional design. And a lot of people will get something in adult education. So we have all these people out in the world that, this is our profession. So we've been trained in a methodology and how to think about how do you structure content? How do you awaken it and make it more interesting? That element, I think, is the missing link in what happened during the pandemic.
Right.
So the pandemic hits. Suddenly everybody's like, oh my God, what am I going to do? How am I going to manage? Particularly if people were, like professional speakers, they were living out on the road. Now like, okay, now what? Right. Or people that were doing training and workshops. A lot of people there, it was on the road. They weren't doing it. Not much was done virtually, except in the corporate sector. So it had been going on in the corporate sector forever. So now people that outside of the corporate sector, or people that sell to corporations or do a B2C type of business, like, well, what do I do now? So the rush was, I'll just do all these recordings. Yeah, I'll do a recording. I'll do a webinar and I'll record it and I'll send it out. Now I have a course. And you have a recording.
Yeah.
Because it was not thought through that that someone is going to be engaging. Is somebody really going to sit and watch a recorded webinar for an hour?
Right. No, and that takes me to my next question is, let's talk about the anatomy of the e-learning environment, about the context, the content and how it's presented. Let's talk a little bit about that, the interactivity, the engagement, the user experience. Can you, kind of give us an idea of what we're looking at, what a true engaging e-learning experience is like?
Well, I love that you're using the word experience, because I think that is the way to think about it, is that you're not creating a course, but you're creating an experience. So one of the first steps that people want to take when they're getting into this game is, so what's available to me? What are the different tools out there that I can use? So video is very prevalent, and I believe it needs to be a part of most of our e-learning courses. And when you're doing video, people will say, how long? How long should the video be? And one of the tips is you want to say as much as you can in as little time as possible to get your point across. So the first thing you have to think is you want to come up with a script. And a lot of people will say, I'm a key points person. I can just talk. Well, I can just talk and ad lib with the best of them. However, when you're producing a video, you want to make it really tight and as concise as you can. That's the first part. Then the other stage of it to look at is, it's a visual medium. So what can you show? So for example, the way that I'm seated now, I'm off center today. No, don't make fun of me, but I've got this white space on this side.
Right.
So it would be possible to have text come up on that
Exactly.
white space next to me. So as I'm talking, keywords could pop. You can do some very simple editing, because what you want to do is have as much movement as you can. I encourage everyone, every time you watch a news show, a movie, a TV show, a commercial, look at how often the scenes change, right? We are all conditioned, because we all are consuming content on screens of all sizes, that there's going to be movement. Things are going to be changing, different camera angles, different things are going to be going on. And that's one way that holds our attention. Now, having said that, it can get expensive to do a lot of that with video. So there's different ways that you can approach it depending on your budget and what your resources are. Things can be done in post-production. You can also use tools like Ecamm if you're a Mac user, or OBS if you're a PC user, where you can bring in different scenes and you can do the scene changes while you're recording. And then the editing is much lighter. Having said,
so you can also use PowerPoint. PowerPoint will allow you to develop your slides, and you can incorporate your video with those, with those slides, and it will actually transform it into video. Now, the difference is that you still need an editing platform.
Yes.
I use Camtasia.
Camtasia is great.
Camtasia
is a great platform.
But my question is, let's say that you can't really afford the video, or anything like that. Can you develop courses that are graphically engaging without having to have video? Okay, to kind of keep the cost down.
Right. Well, you're mentioning using PowerPoint and turning that into a video. That is the simplest thing that you can do, is just have your slides done, really nice graphics, and you can have your voice behind the slides. You don't have to. You don't have to be there, right? And some people get wigged out about being on camera, even though we've been living on camera now for quite a while. But that's a way, I think it's good for people to not get freaked out, but look at it in levels. Like, what can you do to start and make it interesting? Well, having really nice slides, I think a good investment is in a graphic designer to come up with a beautiful template for you. Something that I did. And then you can be talking behind the template. And then the editing for that is simpler. The editing is just cutting out the bloopers. Ask me how I know. And then over time, you can, as you have more funds, then you can look at, well, how much more do I need to do with this video to really level it up? And to me, the next level is doing something like the Ecamm or OBS, where you do everything, you're just recording it and you make some things happen while you're recording it.
And you go into YouTube and you can see a lot of these.
Exactly.
Some of them are very professionally done. Some of them are not professionally done. It's just, and again, we get back to the customer experience. What are they expecting? Okay. With you and I have known each other for a while, and my e-learning environment is set up. We've got a combination. We've got some video, we've got some PowerPoint, we've got some written, with a lot of graphics and stuff like that. But the difference between what I'm bringing to my e-learning environment and what most are doing out there, as far as like Udemy or something like that, is the fact that my environment is designed to not become shelf help. Okay, I want my courses to actually take my customers to building a customized program for their businesses.
Exactly.
Okay, because again, when we're talking about content and we're talking about engagement and interactivity, we all know, you go to a seminar or you go to one of these places that teaching you different things, and you'll sit and, you'll listen and you'll get it. But then you go back to the office and you put it aside and you don't go back to it.
Yes.
All right. So those are the things that, like you said, you have to be thinking about strategically. How am I going to introduce this?
Exactly. Well, I think what's important is you want to get people doing something as quickly as possible. And that's and my head of securities decided to join the show. And that is where having checklists, worksheets, for lack of a better word, give people tools that they can use.
Yes.
So think about, how can you teach somebody how to use a tool? Right. So maybe it's a spreadsheet for doing forecasting, for example. Teach them how to use the spreadsheet to do their forecast.
Right.
Give them something, because people are coming to experts because there's some kind of a problem that they want to solve, or they want to take themselves, they want to, move to a new level. So it's really giving them tools that they can use to support them in their job. That's the most important thing that you can do. If you can do something where you can solve somebody's problem, that's the main event. Right. The other part is, having all of, video, we talked a little about that. Having good sound is the most important.
Right.
Because if the sound is bad, then people will check out.
Right. Right.
And being able to get to the point quickly is important. So these are really just fundamental principles, and then mixing up kind of what you're giving people to do. So if I'm going from looking at a video to using a particular tool, to reading a PDF document, to answering questions, it's just, the more you can change it up, because every time something changes, that's interaction.
Yeah, exactly. And with that being said, how do you adjust or adapt to different learning styles? Versus audio versus visual versus, how do you do that? Yeah. And again, that's that mixing of the mediums.
Exactly. Just by changing up what you do, because, I when I look at learning styles, well, they're important. It's, if you let's just, let's say there's 4 different quadrants. I know there's more, but just to make the math easy, because remember early on, I told you about my issues with math. So you potentially are reaching 25% of your audience at any given time. But here's what I think kind of overtakes the whole idea around learning styles. Right. And that's, if it's important to me, if I really believe that this course is going to help me solve my problem, I'm not going to be as picky about how you're communicating with me, because it's really important to me. Right. And it's relevant. Right.
Right. No, that's true.
That's, if it's relevant, and if I can see myself and I can feel myself in the stories. So here's another part that can sort of compensate for these things. Is what you're doing properly niched, or is it really generic?
Right.
Are you telling a story where I can see myself in the story and I can go, yeah, you get me. I'm in.
No. My granddaughter, is 4 years old. She'll be 5 years old in November. And she's homeschooled. My daughter-in-law is going to be homeschooling her. And she's got her in the Hooked on Phonics program.
Oh.
And so where I'm going with this is, let's talk about the gamification, because a lot of her learning has to do with her solving problems. I mean, I was amazed. There's one where it's actually teaching her coding at 4 years old, where she has to set these arrows for this car to follow the road. And she's got to think about, okay, which arrow goes first? The right arrow, the left arrow, the up arrow, the down arrow. And that's coding. When you think about it, that's coding.
That's awesome.
It's amazing. So let's talk about the gamification as a tool, gamification as a tool for e-learning. And,
Well, I think a great example of gamification in e-learning. There's an application, it's called Duolingo for learning language. And as you go through the different levels, there's a leaderboard. And I traveled to Sicily earlier this year, so I was studying Italian to get ready for the trip. And I got, I was I want to be at the top of that leaderboard. So if somebody has like a kind of a competitive experience, the whole idea of when you do something and you achieve a certain level, you can move up this leaderboard. It was like, okay, I started at the bottom, but now I'm up at the top. I mean, it's simple.
No.
I mean, because we all everybody likes to play games, or is it some kind of a puzzle or problem to solve? There's simple, you can award badges as people proceed through. You can arrange to have, when somebody completes a lesson, a very simple animation. Maybe it's balloons or a confetti drop, or
and she
like
pops
that.
the balloons.
And yeah, I mean, it's kind of it sounds a little bit silly from an adult angle, but I think if you can come up with badging and awards that are appropriate, there's a platform out there. It's called Kahoot, and you can use Kahoot as an independent study, or you could use it in a Zoom session. And people answer questions. They're multiple choice questions, and you every time you get a question right, you get a point. And then at the very end of the game, they've got like the Olympics, the first, second, and third place. You're on the podium, and you get a little recognition. But those things, they're simple, but they're sort of incentives that keep people going. And I know someone who uses this platform to prepare people for, I forgot exactly what type of certification, but she used it to prepare people for a certification exam. Wow. So they had fun studying and doing these practice questions, then to get ready and go and do the real exam, instead of, pulling out the multiple choice tests and darkening the circles and all of that, which, but it made it fun and it made it interesting. And I think because it had that game component to it, it probably made them feel like, yeah, this certification is possible. I was number one on the podium today.
I was going to say, okay, well, let's hear a little bit of this Italian that you learned.
Oh,
yeah, it's amazing.
I got there and I was see,
yeah, see. But let's we're talking about gamification, but there's other elements that go into the engagement aspect, such as collaboration and community, and those kind of things. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, I think that's one of the key places that I think we're at now is we've come out of collectively sharing a very solitary experience and way of living. And people are longing for community. And now it's even more important, we're longing for it. Now, most people in most parts of the world, I've observed lately when I've been out and about, there's just more of an ease. That people don't feel so worried and stressed about it. You get coughed. Don't cough on me. So now, the next path, I think, in the whole e-learning space is going to be even more interesting because we have more choices now. It's not like, well, I can't leave the house. I might as well take another course.
Yes.
Now, all of the e-learning that's out there and available, and I think it's important, and it's in the mix, it's competing with other types of experiences. So it's going to be even more important to make it more engaging. And one way I think to make it engaging is to bring in the community. So I think people need to sort of look at it. Well, how does this fit into my business model and everything that I can do? Perhaps you want to offer a mastermind or some type of a group program. And there's an e-learning component that's bundled into that. So, hey, you're in my mastermind. And because you're in my mastermind and we're going to meet every week, every other week, whatever the cadence is, you also get these courses. And by the way, I'm going to ask you to take certain modules in our work together so that when we come together as the collective, our conversation can be deeper and more meaningful because you will have done the basic training, if you will, before you join me. So I think now it's looking at it from, we built all this e-learning now. How does it fit in to the context of how you want to work with people? And I think that's the next place to go. And I think there's an opportunity for people to make more money in this context because it's probably easier to sell a few high ticket offers than, thousands and thousands and thousands of
little ticket,
$47, $20. So because it's a numbers game, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly it. And then when you start incorporating the newest technology, which we're talking about augmented reality, and virtual reality, and as we move from there into that environment, the not only does the price point go up, okay, but the engagement goes up as well because they feel as though they're getting more value for the dollar. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So both, augmented reality and virtual reality, this is like, I think the next type of technology that's going to work its way down that more people can take advantage of it. My first experience with virtual reality was probably 20 years ago. And it was like a million to set it up in a company to do it. And it was like, if you kind of look at how video games have evolved from the, back to, we can remember things like Pong, right? To where we are now. So as it becomes, as a tool, more available to more people to use, then we can start to see broader applications. I personally, I like the augmented reality more, where you're in your world, but you're also, like maybe more of a voyeur. I think that's going to be a very interesting component to add, where you can do more richer types of simulations. Right. And the dreaded role play will become more interesting. Just my dog here will become because I think if you can it's almost like putting a mask on at a party.
Right. No, that's exactly it. That's exactly it. So all of this leads to one statement, one question. Our learners, they're not passive recipients anymore. They're actually driving a lot of this education, this work, the digital environments, and things like that. So what do you see the future looking like?
I think about what it was. Oh, I'm sorry. You kind of, you broke up a little bit. Can you repeat
sorry.
that? That's okay.
So basically,
it's technology.
It's basically what we're saying is that our learners are not passive recipients anymore. They're the ones who are dictating how they want their material delivered.
Absolutely. And, I think about, what it was like to sit in a lecture hall in college.
Oh, yeah, I do too.
Right. With,
90, 100 people.
And the professor just kind of droned on in the front of the room, and you took copious notes and you took a test. In a lot of ways, that's what some of these recordings feel like to me. It's just very passive because I'm just watching this recording and taking notes.
Right.
And I find that now as we're moving forward, people want to be more of an active participant.
Right.
And they want to feel that it's more like play. And as the population of adults changes, if you think about like your granddaughter, how she's learning through play, where a lot of other young people have been learning through play. So when they get into the workplace, and then somebody just dumps like some, here's, you have to take the required training about cybersecurity, and it's like, oh my God, right? So the market is just going to start to shift. And it's not that everybody's looking to be, that doesn't have, it's not always about entertainment, but it's about being interesting and being relevant and relatable.
And holding your attention, just holding your attention. Our attention spans are so narrow nowadays, that if
Oh
we
my gosh.
figure out how to hold that attention is just really, So we're coming up on the end of another episode of Charged Up Studio. And thank you, Nancy, for joining us today and shedding light on the e-learning and digital marketing, or the digital learning environment. This is what's driving our market nowadays, So do you have any last minute tips that you want to leave with our audience when it comes to if they are thinking about getting in or delving into the e-learning or the digital marketing environment?
Well, you want to start any project, in its old quote from Stephen Covey, you want to begin with the end in mind.
Yes.
You want to think about what's the outcome and ask yourself the question, when somebody completes my course, what are they going to be able to do that they couldn't do before? What are they going to know that they didn't know? And how are they going to feel? And have that be your guiding light throughout the whole process. And start working with one tool, one type of technology, get comfortable with it, pick up another one, and just keep adding to your toolkit as you go. And also, if there's certain things that you want to have happen, think about, who do you need to outsource to?
Exactly.
What's the best use of your time?
And that's important to understand. You don't have to do it all. There are people out there that are experts at what needs to be done, and take advantage of their knowledge base.
Exactly.
In the long run, it's going to be cheaper for you to do that than to try and do it yourself, when you think about it. So how can our listeners reach you should they wish to?
The best way to reach me is, if you want, you can go to my website, which is nancygiere.com, and Giere is Giere. You can email me, which is easy. It's nancy@nancygiere.com. And I would love to continue the conversation.
And you're also on LinkedIn.
I'm on LinkedIn, yes.
Yes. All right. So that concludes our podcast for today. Please leave a review on any of the streaming platforms you're listening to us on, or go to our Charged Up Studio Facebook page and leave a review there. Charged Up Studio is the product of Marketatomy and Marketatomy Academy, the e-learning system designed specifically with the micro business owner in mind. For more information and to register for our mini courses, go to Marketatomy, marketatomy.academy. And until next week, where we'll bring you another special guest, go out and have a charged up week. Thank you so much, Nancy, once again.
Oh, you're very welcome.
You've been listening to Charged Up Studio Live, the podcast with you, the small business owner in mind, with your host, Danna Olivo. Join us every Tuesday as we bring you valuable tips and insights into many of the topics you don't know about growing a successful business. Please leave us a review on any of the streaming platforms you are listening to, or visit us on the YouTube or Facebook page and leave a review, or subscribe so you don't miss another episode. You can also support us through Patreon by visiting our website, chargedupstudio.live, and click on the Patreon link. Until next week, go out and have a charged up week.